Welcome, scholars, to today's lesson, lesson 2-1.10. Can't we all just get along? Today we're going to be looking at the Ottoman Empire and how this empire was able to connect so many diverse groups of people. But to begin with this, and really to give the answer to the question, they had to. They didn't have another option. This was a very large empire by the time it was fully grown. It will go from just a little section of the Anatolian Peninsula to controlling the heartland of the former Byzantine Empire to being a Mediterranean power that dominates many, many different people throughout the region. Now, it was the Ottoman Turkish Empire. It was led by Osman to begin with, and this was a Turkish man. And frequently we use terms like the Ottoman Turks, or simply referring to this empire as the Turks. But it's important that we all understand that while it was a Turkish-led empire, it included many, many peoples, many ethnicities. It really was a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural empire. And that is what we're going to be focusing on today. To begin with, though, we want to talk about the Turkic people themselves. The Turks did not originate in the nation that we currently call Turkey, and which was the heartland of the Ottoman Empire. We're talking about the Anatolian Peninsula. The Turks themselves originated in Central Asia. They were one of a number of nomadic tribes, and they had been there for a couple of thousand years, pestering the more civilized, in quotations, neighbors. You see the Turkic people attacking China before the Mongols were. You see the Turkic people attacking into India. You see the Turkic people attacking into Arabia. The Turks had been around for a while. They just had never been a major power. Now, this is going to change after the Turks were finally conquered and subdued by somebody. That would be the Islamic Empire. The Persians had for a while controlled the Turks, but it's going to be with the Islamic Empire conquering the Turkic people, and the Turkic people then learning from the Islamic Empire a little bit more about warfare, blending it with their own particular style of hit-and-run warfare, that the Seljuk Turks, a Muslim Turkish group, is really going to rise to power and prominence. We have studied the Seljuks already. These are going to be the people that were in some ways led to the Crusades by capturing the Holy Lands and reducing Christian pilgrimages there. So those will be the Seljuk Turks. And then the Ottomans are another group of these Turkic people. Ottomans are not a tribe. They are all Turks. But we're talking about the descendants of Osman when we talk about the Ottomans. The Turks themselves come from a number of regions. We have a large Turkic population in Central Asia where they originally came from, but we also have Turkic migrants who have settled in northeastern Siberia, as well as in modern-day Turkey, the Anatolian Peninsula. So if we were to look at where Turkic people are today, they're quite spread out. But it was, of course, not just the Turks within this empire. It was vast, it was large, there were lots of different groups. The Turks were mainly just the rulers, the upper crust of society, with the exception of in the Anatolian Peninsula. The other major ethnic groups included the Arabs. The Arabs had burst out of the Arabian Peninsula in the 600s and 700s AD and had been the leaders throughout the Islamic Empire and the Islamic Caliphates. And they're really going to account for the majority of the population of the Ottoman Empire. Most of the people, or more than any other people, were Arabs. But close behind the Arabs are going to be the Greeks, because the Byzantine Empire has also been throughout this region. If we were to look again at this Mediterranean Sea region down here, we see the Byzantine Empire exists throughout much of what is going to become the Ottoman Empire. The Arab Caliphates exist throughout much of the region that is going to become the Ottoman Empire. So we had Greek people, the Byzantines were primarily Greek, and Arabs throughout the region prior to the Ottomans. They're still living there under Ottoman rule. Now, religion. The Ottomans are going to have to rule over a religiously diverse community. It initially was not an important part of Osman's life. He was a Muslim, he was a Sunni Muslim, but he did not put religious goals at the forefront of his rule and how he wanted society to be structured. But he will be pressured by powerful rivals within his empire, powerful families that are more religious, and he will take on a more religious tone, causing him to publicly embrace Sunni Islam and push for conversion through less militaristic means. Other Islamic traditions, such as Shia and Sufi, were accepted largely through the Ottoman era, especially the early Ottoman period. You have large areas, this map here shows the gray is going to be predominantly Sunni, like the Ottomans. The lighter shade of, I guess this is kind of a tan or a yellow, is Shia dominated. But the Ottoman Empire is going to control a lot of Shia dominated areas. This is mostly going to be the Safavid Empire over here, but a number of Shia within the Ottoman Empire, they're going to have to be tolerant of those practices. Additionally, there are some religious minorities, Christians and Jews, throughout the empire. And the Ottomans really saw it as their duty, as their role to protect these minorities. They were not out to persecute Jews and persecute Christians. We're well past the Crusades. Some of that animosity is past, but the Ottomans want to govern people that want to accept Ottoman rule. They don't want to be fighting against insurrections and rebellions against their own people all the time. And since the majority of their empire is Christian, when they take power, the Ottomans have to accept that Christianity. To do so, they pass a number of laws that guarantee rights to Christians and Jews, including the right to worship. They're also exempt from Muslim laws, like, for example, Muslims are not allowed to consume alcohol. To practice Christianity, you must, sorry for that interruption, in order to practice Christianity, to consume the body and blood of Christ, Christians must drink wine as a part of their religion. Jews likewise have religious rights that have them consuming alcohol. These practices, in order to accept the religion, you have to also allow these. So Jews and Christians were exempt from Muslim law. Not Ottoman law, not secular law, just from Islamic Muslim law. Now, there was a downside to this as well. Christians and Jews were considered second-class citizens within the empire. There were additional taxes that they had to pay. Additionally, they were barred from owning weapons or from riding horses or basically practicing military exercises, again, to make sure that rebellions and revolts did not happen. So what we see within the Ottoman Empire is something that is far more tolerant than most societies of the time. Now, the Mongols were famously very, very tolerant. The Ottomans aren't going to be quite to the level of the Mongols, but when you compare the Ottomans to Europe at the time or to previous Islamic empires, they are a very tolerant society, both ethnically and religiously, because they have to be. Without that tolerance, the Islamic Empire would fracture, would fall apart. But instead, it stays together and it stays strong for several hundred years. It's in existence for nearly 700. So it is through this tolerance and acceptance. It is multi-ethnic, it is religiously diverse, and it has to be. Otherwise, it would not succeed. And the Ottomans actually learned this lesson the hard way, because over time, the empire does become less diverse. This is through conversions and migrations of certain people. Islam really comes to dominate the empire in a way that it hadn't initially. And as other religions become less common, they become seen as more foreign. and people are less tolerant of foreign things. And this less diversity leads to less toleration, which actually does lead to the fracturing of the empire, the weakening of the empire as a whole. So that does happen to the Ottoman Empire, but that will be a little bit outside the time frame of this class. So I just want to let you know, Ottomans, for the time, were a very tolerant society, and that was a big part of their success. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.